can have two really awesome people working on a campaign and then they graduate. What are you left with, right? It's really important to be building up a group. And this is something that I don't think we often think about. It's hard to really go personal and think like, what do we really have in our group? What are our assets and our limitations? Assets can be really specific positives, really specific things that people are able to do, characteristics that you have within individuals in your group that can be really, really great for the whole campaign. So an example might be somebody works in a certain office where they have free printing and so they can make posters. Or someone is just like really, really charismatic and knows a ton of administrators. Throw them out. What are some things that you think would be really specific assets towards reaching those goals? Assets in an organization. Go ahead.
Teaching experience.
Totally. Yeah.
And, yeah, willing to train teachers.
Experience teaching, yeah.
We have a well-established student group that is already working towards some of these issues, and an official Office of Sustainability on campus that's a great resource for this as well.
So an organization, so to make that really specific, maybe people who have been here, right? People who have experience with the ropes and an office, yeah, the actual space, that's totally an asset.
And I would say that group, Sustain Mizzou, has been really good about keeping institutional knowledge, I guess, for passing down leadership and training. We've sustained the group very well, so we have that experience and know how to do that already.
Cool. So so folks who have the knowledge of what's been happening already. That's great.
Are still passing that on. It's evidenced by freshmen in this room taking on leadership roles.
So I would say that's an asset too, is underclassmen who are participating. They're already getting started and they have so much ahead of them. Great. And these are things to keep pondering. These are really important to know what benefits you have in your group, what assets you have. What about limitations? This one might be harder because it means really thinking about what some of the disadvantages are in your group or things that have happened that you need to work through. An example might be that the leader of the group is super overburdened and overcommitted and does everything and needs assistance. Or another example might be that two people who are heading up the group were dating and they break up. And then it's political and causes some conflict within the group, right? So these are things that really happen and that you need to really be real about. Does anybody have an example of other things that you could see as a limitation?
Something I think we run into a lot is just the sheer size of Mizzou. I've talked to people at smaller colleges, and it's a lot easier to bring real food to 1,000, 3,000 people than it is to 30,000, and so that's something that is a constant struggle.
So the size, and I would add that is maybe a challenge you have just within this whole plan, but what we're talking about here are the limitations within this core group. So the people who are working on it, what are some things within your organization, within your core group of folks working that are limitations? Although that's certainly a challenge for this whole process. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say that money can always be a limitation. It's sometimes hard to get funding, and you just need money for materials in order to make everything happen.
Totally. That's a great one. Yep. Do you have any other examples? No, these are key. Yeah, one more?
Just a lack of understanding of who or maybe what systems you need to go through to make things happen. Because, like Tina pointed out, things can be complicated here. So, not always having the right information in order to proceed towards our goals.
So not knowing the bureaucracy, basically. Is that a good?
Yeah.
That can be a limitation. Yep.
I think this core group can sometimes be the same core group for a lot of things. We all care a lot, but I think we do kind of get overstressed, and we're good about reaching out to people, but it is the core kind of bounces around to all of these issues. So we need to find a way to not only reach out to other people, but to reach out to them and get them to stick and stay and become core members.
And that's a perfect transition into this last thing, organizational goals. So again, this is half the story. Half the story are your goals for your outcomes, and half is the organization. So similarly, just exactly like you do these 3 kinds of goals for the campaign, you have to do them for your organization. And what I like to imagine as a long-term goal of an organization is that every student on campus is a member of it, essentially. Because then you wouldn't exist. Everybody's on board, everybody wants real food, right? That's the kind of vision we're talking about. That's a long-term vision. An intermediate goal, though, I could totally see coming out of that. You know, we want 50 new members in this organization by the end of the year. And what would be short-term goals towards doing that? 3 movie nights to get up awareness, you know, dorm storming and knocking on people's doors to invite them to meetings, right? So those things that you do throughout the semester, the daily work that you would do. Just as much as you do the goals for the campaign, you have to have those same goals for the organization. And these are things to develop and be thinking about and do more specifically later.